So first I would need to have a motion on the agenda of the liquor control.
I make the motion that we adopt the agenda of the liquor control as written.
You'll need to turn your mic on.
Boy, oh boy. I make a motion that we adopt the agenda for the meeting. I had a phrase. First time I have a motion that we adopt the agenda.
There we go.
Thank you.
Second, anyone? Second. All right, second, okay. First, would be approval of the minutes of the May 27th liquor control.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any changes or additions to the minutes? None heard. All in favor of approving the minutes of the liquor meeting for May 27th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? Now we have, would you like to take this as a consent?
Yeah, I make a motion that we combine items 3, 4, 5, and 6 as a consent agenda item.
Okay. So items 3, 4, 5, and 6. Do we have a motion from anyone to approve?
I make a motion that we approve items 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor of approval of all the liquor licenses and tobacco licenses on 3, 4, 5, and 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? And now item 7 on that agenda is public comment on the liquor control board. None seen or heard. Do we have a motion to adjourn the liquor control?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One down. Now we move on to the Brandon Board of Sewer Commissions. First would be to adopt our agenda.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as written.
You have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next would be approval of the minutes of the Sewer Commissioners meeting from March 11th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay. Any additions or changes to the minutes? None heard. All in favor of the minutes of the March 11th Sewer Commissioners meeting, please say aye.
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 Now, item 3 is to consider purchase orders for all of our chemicals for the sewer department and sludge removal. So we have 3 A, B, C, D, and E. Would you like to review those?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our chief system operator, Steve Chica, is here, as he always comes on the night when the bids come in for the board. So if the board has questions, I'm sure that Steve is super capable of answering them. It would be delighted.
Have any questions for Steve?
I guess I just double check. Steve, are these the usual chemicals that we need? This is like, I mean.
Yes, you need the sodium hypochlorite to kill the bacteria and to clean up wastewater. And then after it does its job, you need the sodium bisulfite, take the chlorine out of the wastewater. So when it goes to the river, the fish aren't affected to any great degree. And the sodium aluminate is used to catch the phosphorus, and as a result makes more sludge. And then we take it out, the tanker truck takes it out of the plant, brings it to Rutland, and conditions it and dries it, and then the seller brings it to Coventry, Vermont, way up there. They bury it in Coventry.
Glad I live in Brandon.
Almost more information than I need to know.
This is, thank you. That's helpful. I just want to make sure it was sort of run of the mill.
On the trucking, Steve, do they come in with their own truck and trailer and pump it themselves, or how does that work?
Sellers.
Because, so it's their equipment, their truck, their trailer, everything. Okay.
Any other questions? Or a motion?
Oh, I make a motion that we approve purchase orders, items 3A, B, C, D, and E.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chair. I just would like to note that I think Steve Chica has always done a wonderful job. I thought that when I was on the select board at preparing bids, that made it easy for the select board to understand both the history and the general purposes of all of them. And I would just note that this is the purchase order that will extend the town's contracts beyond Steve's retirement date. So thank you, Steve, for leaving us in good stead here.
And for anybody who doesn't have a copy of these, the reason they're so impressive is that he has the prices for the past 8 or 10 years so that we can compare. That's why I felt comfortable when I said, are these run of the mill? Because he had the proof that they were run of the mill. We bought the same thing for 10 years and we could compare prices. So thank you, Steve. That was above and beyond.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving all 5 purchase orders, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now, public comment on sewer commissioners meeting. Public comment on sewer. Will we make a motion to adjourn?
Let's make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to adjourn the sewer commissioners meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no one? Now we're here for the important part of the all came select board meeting. So first order of business is to adopt our agenda.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
Second.
Anyone have any additions? All in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no one? Approval of the select board minutes from May 27th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the meeting on May 27th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any corrections, additions, subtractions? None heard. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
And approval of our warrant. The light warrant this time.
I make a motion that we approve the warrant for $60,680.54.
Second from anyone?
I'll second that.
Okay, questions on any of the bills for the town manager?
How come Awesome Graphics does vehicle inspections? Is that a normal?
Don't think it was an inspection. That might not be right. It was to do with the lettering on one of the cruisers. You know, like they do the decal work.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? None heard. All in favor of approving the warrant? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, warrant is passed. Now we are going to have a presentation by the Vermont Council on Rural Development and Community Visit Program. Gemma? What?
I'm
Here,
here.
you're Jenna?
With my colleague Alyssa Johnson is just on the screen here. Hi, Alyssa.
They wanted me to unmute. Hi, everyone, and your mics
Bill.
work great. Thank you.
Bill, you need to let Tom Kimpuck in. Thank you.
The floor is yours.
And I don't know, Seth or Bill, do you want to give any like background or intro to the
Well,
conversation?
we gave the select board at a previous meeting just a little primer.
Oh, good.
Thing, like the two pages, so they have a general concept of it.
Okay.
I don't know if Bill has something to add about community development.
Yeah, I've worked with Jenna for a while. I think this is a worthwhile consideration for the select board, and I don't want to step on Jenna's presentation, but I think you'll be impressed.
And yeah, I think more of a conversation, less of a presentation. So I'd certainly welcome your questions and any reflections. But what I'll do is just give the kind of quick overview of who VCRD is, Vermont Council on Rural Development, and a little bit about the community visit process that we offer, that Seth and Bill have asked us to share with you all. And Alyssa, you can fill in anything if I miss anything. So again, we work for the Vermont Council on Rural Development. We are essentially a neutral, independent convener of community and public process in Vermont. We're actually charged by the federal farm bill to do that work. We're a state rural development council. There's about 9 or so really active rural development councils around the country. Vermont's probably one of the more active and larger councils. But essentially, that charge doesn't come along with any authority or funding. But it allows us to have a unique board structure. Our board is made up of members of the governor's cabinet, doesn't matter which party, we're a nonpartisan organization, federal leadership, community, business, nonprofit, and all the congressional offices. So that board helps to guide our work in support of communities. And our role is really to help convene and facilitate community conversation, but then also kind of be a liaison between communities and then regional, state, federal resources. So depending on what a community decides they want to work on, we can help make those connections to the resources that are available. Most of our work, I should say, is at the community level, one-on-one facilitation with a community. We do work at the state level as well. We facilitate conversations on issues that impact rural communities. We've held a process on looking at the working land in Vermont and how to best support food and farm and forest businesses in the state, for example. So we've had conversations like that over the years, but the core and heart of our work is really that community facilitation. So I wanted to kind of, Seth and Bill asked us to share in particular one program that we offer for communities, which we call our community visit program. And if you've got that kind of front and back one pager, it outlines the process, and we can certainly follow up with some other materials as well. But essentially, our community visit process is a program we've been running for about 30 years now in close to around 90 communities around the state. And we've worked with tiny, tiny towns up in the Northeast Kingdom. Right now, we're working with the town of Westmore, which is a population of 300 people year round, 1,500 in the summer. But then we've also worked with larger towns like Milton and Berry City and some communities around the state. And essentially, the community visit provides a neutral platform for community conversation. And the goal of the process is to bring out as many voices as possible in the community. We want to hear from the full spectrum of community representation in whatever town we're working in. It's always different. We try and bring in as many voices as we can and walk through a process to help the community brainstorm ideas and then set concrete, actionable priorities for the future of the town. It's not a visioning process. It is not another town plan. You don't need that. It's really about narrowing down to a handful of concrete actions and also engaging volunteerism and leadership in the community to take those things on. We only work where we're invited by the select board, by town leadership, but we don't actually work only for the select board. We kind of serve the full community. And really one of the goals is to maybe bring new voices into the process. And we really ask the question, not what do community members of Brandon or whatever, and what do you want to work on for the future of your town? And through this process, and I'll just quickly walk through it, but through this process, we see town to prioritize a full number of different initiatives from kind of along the community development spectrum. So we have had some communities certainly really go big and prioritize significant infrastructure improvements. For example, we worked with the town of Johnson years back, and they ended up doing a full streetscape redevelopment. I know you all are very familiar with that, that process, buried the power lines, full streetscape redevelopment. And you know, multi-million dollar project with an earmark from Senator Leahy. And some towns go in that direction, Montgomery, where they prioritize wastewater infrastructure. And they're now one of the most ready communities to connect with ARPA funding coming into the state and move forward with their significant project in a small community. In a different direction, we prioritize community events and communication and things that we don't have as massive of a price tag but are really important for the well-being and health of the community. And some people are working at in Bridgeport right now, and just a couple of nights ago, last week, they prioritize. They're small. They prioritize 2 initiatives. One group has formed to work on housing in the community. Another group has formed to work on events and communication, and really creating ways for the community to come together and better coordinate and share those opportunities with the town. So, and then there's everything in between: childcare and recreation trails, a whole number of different things that communities decide to take on. Community centers is really popular lately. So basically, really quick overview of the process. Essentially, once we begin work with a community, it becomes about a 4 to 6 month process where we first gather community representatives together to help us frame this process. Every town is different. We aren't social engineers. We don't come with any sort of plan for the town. We're there as facilitators, and we rely on people locally to say, these are the things we should be talking about right now. And these are all the different ways to get the word out and connect to people in the community. So we have a one-time planning meeting, and then we really open it up to the full community. We host a fun but business-like event where there's a community dinner. In Bridgeport, it was like the fire department opened up their doors and held a community dinner and a cookout. There was music, but then on either end of that, there were forums that we facilitate and invite the full community. And in a town of 900 people, they had like 175 people come out to participate in the conversation. And in the forums that they select, the community members select, we say, what are the assets, what are the challenges, and what are your ideas? So it's that brainstorming moment in the process. The next month, we come back and we essentially take all that input. We do surveys, we do youth forums, we try and collect input in several different ways. And we kind of distill that together, literally put those ideas up on the wall in the next meeting and walk through a process to vote on priorities. And that could be 2 in a town the size of Bridgeport, and maybe in this community it's 3 or 4. Essentially we walk through a process to vote. Dots on the wall. It's not high tech or anything, but it's a way for the community to deliberate. And here, in Montgomery, where I mentioned, I don't think a lot of people came into that room really like jazzed about wastewater, but there were people that were thinking about childcare and housing and business growth, and they recognized through that deliberation that to do that, there's this foundation that we need to build, and they focused on that wastewater infrastructure. So step 2, we set priorities, and then the final step, it's really action planning. So that's the moment we don't want to just leave with a list, and we want to say, well, here, think with the community about steps that can be taken and resources that are available to work on the projects that are identified. At multiple points in the process, we bring a visiting team with us. Bill has served on visiting teams before to share the work that you all are doing here. But we bring other community leaders who can share what they're doing in their community. We bring people who can provide technical assistance, hopefully funding to initiatives. And they're now partners and friends of the community, and they've sat through hours of community conversation and can be a resource and we tell them that we expect them to pick up the calls when communities call them and have questions or looking for support. And we provide, ongoing technical assistance, support, and coaching as needed. But from there on, we help to build these local task forces that then really carry the ball in the next steps of the initiatives that are identified. So in the end of the process, you have all of those notes from the forums, all the potential ideas, the action plans for the priorities that are set, contact info for all those visiting team members that came. And we pull that into a final report. And communities use that in many different ways, but I always love when we come back to a community a few years later and people still have that report and are using it as a guide to the next steps in the town, or use it to inform their town plan the next time they go through that process, whatever it may be. So I think that's the process. Unless Alyssa, would you add anything that I'm missing up there on the screen?
Nothing about the process. The select board might be curious what commitments the town would need to participate in the process.
Thank you. Alyssa's on a select board in Waterbury, so she knows what the select board is concerned about. Yes, we offered this process free of charge to communities. It costs us about $45,000 to pull one of these off. It's a lot of staff time, and that's really what we can bring is that time it takes to get out and get the word out and invite people together. We don't charge communities for that. We're funded through a variety of different funding sources, like any nonprofit, to do this work. But there are two things that we ask from the town that we're working with, town capital T from the select board. One is we ask the town to support the dinner for the community event. Whatever that looks like. Sometimes it's catered, sometimes it's the fire department, and then it's the school food service, whatever works in that particular community. The dinner, and then the town covers the cost of a mailing that goes out to everyone in the community. That's one of the ways that we get the word out and kind of blanket ways. We have a whole other series of strategies that we use to invite people together. But those are the two things that we ask from the town. The other thing that's important to know is just kind of where we are in terms of our schedule and how a community goes about requesting this process. Vermont communities have been through a lot in recent years. You may not be surprised to know there's a lot of demand for facilitation, and communities kind of thinking about how to move forward, whether it's just to think about what's next or to address challenges they've experienced, like flooding in their communities, for example. But we are always open to requests for the community visit process. We're in the process right now, so we are committed to communities through this year. And we're in the process in the next couple months of deciding which communities we'll work with in 2025. So these next, we're going to be making those decisions in August. The way those decisions are made is we have, I mentioned our board structure. We have kind of an advisory group to our board. It's our closest community development friends and partners like Community Foundation, Preservation Trust in Vermont, USDA Rural Development, and Department of Housing and Community Development. Those folks come together in a semi-regular way and review requests, and they help us decide where we commit to working. And then our board makes final decision. And our plan is to hopefully make those decisions in August, and our board will finalize in September for where we work in 2025. We have another initiative called our Village Trust Initiative that we're waiting on communities going through that process, and we'll decide at the same time. And the way to do that is to just we just look for a letter from the select board to us requesting a community visit process. And pretty simple. It's nothing too complicated. I can share some examples. But it's helpful to have a few notes in there about why this might be useful to the community. Yeah, and anything that's useful to share, but we try to keep it pretty simple. So I would just say, if anyone has, if any of you have questions, I don't know if you're willing to open it up to others, their questions as well, I'm happy to answer.
Bill was gonna.
Oh yeah, I just want to, fantastic. And I've sat in on a couple different community visits, particular Wallingford and Milton, and it's been, it was interesting to be on the expert side of things, right? Me as an expert, right? Shocking. But to see, the energy in the community members coming out and feeling heard. And this is something that Seth and I, once Seth came on last April, started talking about to get around the opportunity to sort of pull the community, find out where we want to go as a community. We've had a lot of change over the last 10 years. And just so happens that we've now gone through just 3 budget votes to get our budget done. So we thought that this was actually kind of interesting and timely. We were talking about this as a way to get the barometer of the community, but then to have, the acrimony, I guess, for lack of a better word, that we've just gone through as a community. I thought it was timely that Jenna was able to get us in to present this to you guys.
How, I think you really did answer part of this, Bill, but how, like, we just finished up getting our town plan sort of polished. How is this different and complementary to that? Like, is there some redundancy, or is it, I just want to make sure.
I don't think that it's redundant at all. I mean, the
Okay.
town plan process is something that's mandated by state law. We have to go through the town plan process, and it's not always as engaging of a process. You don't have an entire organization that's developed to make that happen in a way. So this is a way, again, we've got a solid town plan. Our town plan commissioners did a fantastic job of creating a town plan that reflects our values, but these are some really actionable items that can come out that can be community driven versus, setting ourselves up for grant opportunities in the future or setting a, general course for the town.
So it sounds like plan sort of forest. A little more. I know.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
was gonna kind of, that particularly, I've not thought of it that way. That's actually well put. Like, I do think, when was the town plan?
This spring, February.
Okay, so really recent. I actually tend to feel like this process works really well, either right before a town planning process or right after. During can be tricky, just with a lot of demand on the community. But to follow up, a town plan is just that, right? It's laying out a set of important strategies for the future of your town. It's critical and required. But I would say our process can be complementary to that, in that oftentimes it can kind of help to build some momentum and movement behind initiatives that more than likely align with goals that are set out in the town plan. But sometimes, what we have seen over the years is, any town has a long list of potential action that can be taken, plans, vision. And this process can help to, at least in the short term, narrow down that list to what do you want to get started on today, and also help to bring in some community energy to help to drive some of those forward. So my hope is that it can complement and support, but I don't see it as redundant.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? I'll give the public a chance to ask any questions if they have any.
I'll throw one up there. I believe that I'm not the only person that would say, you may not be in the room. But this has been a difficult season. We went through 3 votes today. And what else we need? Deeply divided. I think to do something like you're suggesting, it sounds really unbelievable. It would be so important to some of the sectors that it isn't used to being engaged in. Frankly, may feel more disengaged than other than this specific budget process. Have you all worked before with a community that was at that moment in time? And were there special things that you did to make sure that it wasn't just the hats that showed up for the happy valley meetings, but that it was representative of all of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I will say communities come to us for so many different reasons. For example, sometimes communities are really on this moment of cohesion and momentum. To be honest, I think that's more rare than communities that come to us with these types of challenges where they're, like you're saying, there feels like there's this real divide. in the community, or a community has experienced some really significant hardship. Like we facilitated this process in the town of Vernon after the closure of Vermont University, and in Fulton after the closure of Green Mountain College. And so these communities that are kind of in this moment of upheaval, and even just in towns that have a deep divide, like Greensboro up in the Northeast Kingdom, where you have your kind of village with the summer homes, and the more wealthy, you have Greensboro Bend, which is a much more challenged community and a lower income community. So all that to say that, yes, I mean, we're fairly comfortable facilitating amidst tension and challenge. And I think with every town, it's about adapting the process to thinking about, in this community, in this unique situation that you're facing, because it's all different, how can we best bring in those voices? And, you know, oftentimes it either involves ways to build trust and bring voices into the conversation, or sometimes in going and talking to different groups. So it may not, they're just not going to work for a meeting, but maybe there's a way to connect and bring in their voice in that way. So it's something that we, you know, it's one reason we bring that planning thing together, because we look for advice. And we got to bring in that voice.
Yeah, well, any other questions? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
I would say we will be discussing it, and you'll hear from us.
Great, perfect. That's what I was going to say. Is, you know, discuss as you need to. I'll kind of step out, but let us know if you have questions. Alyssa, I'm about to disappear to the Northeast Kingdom for a week, but Alyssa is on point to answer any questions, and I'll connect her with you both. And then I would just say, if the community decides to move forward, and again, you know, it's up to, we're not out trying to sell any product or anything. It's up to this community whether it feels like this is the right moment for this kind of conversation. And if it is, we would just look for a letter, and then would bring that to the group in August. So that would be the kind of timeline.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I did send my report in advance, and the only item I'd like to highlight from it before I read something from the tree warden is at the bottom of the second page. I would like to highlight that last year's goal setting meeting was useful, and I would request that the select board convene another open to the public goal setting meeting at some point in the near future. So you can do what the pleasure of the board is on that. And then with your permission, Mr. Chair and members of the board, I have something from the tree warden that I'd like to read for him. He requested. So this is from our tree warden, Neil Sillins. He has just been recognized at the state level with a 2024 Tree Steward Award, which is really quite an achievement for a fairly new tree warden. So he asked this to be read: whether you're a tree hugger or a tree tolerator, there's no question that trees add a lot to a community. We know that trees moderate the temperature, reduce rainwater runoff, reduce crime, and make people happier. We have a lot of trees in Brandon and Forestdale. Are any trees better or best? Not really. But which one is bigger or biggest? The Brandon Tree Group, or BTG, the new name for the tree committee, is hosting a biggest tree contest. Not the tallest tree, but the biggest around in Brandon and Forestdale. We would like you to submit your choice for biggest tree. Usually, mature trees are measured using diameter at breast height, which is abbreviated DBH. We're making it easier. Measure the circumference at breast height, which is about 4.5 feet from the ground. Measure in inches. Take a picture if you can. Tell us where it is and the species: oak, maple, ash, or whatever, or question mark. Email this information to brandontreewarden@gmail.com along with the best way to contact you. The contest will run until Thanksgiving 2024. BTG will review the submissions for the biggest diameter trunk and have a ceremony to announce the winners. Prizes to be determined.
Thank you. Something else you'd like to highlight on there?
It is wonderful that the town has received a substantial reimbursement from FEMA for the July 2023 flood response. And what we now have to work at is the portion from the state for some of the projects, which you see listed on the front page at the bottom in the little chart. And then the town's responsibility is listed in the far right column there. And we'll be coming back to the board with some request to designate funds to clear that up at the end of the fiscal year.
That is the same thing I had highlighted, along with Sue's. Could we read this?
Oh, Bill loves to read.
This is information from Sue.
Is this on?
Sue regarding tax bills. I could give my copy to Steve.
We're just going. Sorry, I noticed it was awesome.
He comes in, very quick.
What I'm asking for that is regarding our tax bills coming out, depending on the outcome of the vote tomorrow. You got it? Okay, thank you. Because I've heard people questioning this and miscommunication. Some people saying, well, if it doesn't pass, it means we won't get tax bills and whatever. So I feel it's worth reading this statement.
Effect of late education vote. If the budget passes on Tuesday, June 11th, tax bills will be delayed. It must wait 30 days before an election can be certified, which would be July 11th. You must wait 14 days for the Department of Education to issue homestead tax rate, which will be July 25th. Tax bills will be going out the week of August 5th through the 9th with due dates of 9/15, 11/15, 2/15, and 5/15. School taxes will be delayed until tax bill due date of 9/15. If the budget fails on Tuesday, June 11th, tax bills will not be delayed, but will require two separate billings, interim billing and supplemental billing. We'll be able to pay any non-residential properties without a supplemental billing. Homestead properties will receive an estimated bill where we estimate the school budget based on the prior year. A tax bill will still be issued and need to get paid. We will pay the school an estimated share after the August 15th due date per normal. Once a budget passes, 30 days pass for certification and 14 days for Department of Ed to revise the tax rate, and we will do a supplemental bill to all homesteads. Susan M. Gage.
Thank you, Bill, for reading that. Thank you, Seth, for your town manager report. Any board member have questions of town manager? Public questions?
Oh, I
Yep.
just wonder, do I need to, or should we make a motion to schedule a meeting for Seth, for the town manager's goal setting? Do we need a motion or I just don't know the procedure.
We don't need a motion, but we need to start talking about some dates.
Okay. And we're allowed to do that through email since it's scheduling now?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I won't take up time at the meeting.
Okay,
Thanks.
public questions of the town manager? None heard. Rec director's report.
Me again. This is my rec director's report for today. The softball, baseball season is ending. A big thank you to our sponsors and coaches. Scott Quinneville of Mountainside Flooring, Darcy Heitman, coached Maze Place, Robin Douglas, coached GraphX, Chad DeZorda, coached McCullough Brothers, Justin Martell coaches Pest Control. Justin McKeegan coached Shady J's Barbecue. Justin Martell coached Black Diamond Builders Mighty Mites team. Paul Cannell coached the McCullough Brothers Mighty Mites team. Megan and TJ Dickinson coached the Town Line Equipment team. Megan and Bill Rose coached the Carter Insurance Agency team. Colton Lino did the Brandon Mason's T-ball team. Kayla Griswold, the Stone Motors T-ball team, Lexi Doobie, the Black Diamond Builders, and that was their T-ball team, and Noah O'Connor coached the T-ball team for McCullough Brothers. See a couple repeats in there because we do have some generous businesses that will sponsor more than one team. Our banner sponsors for this year are the Brandon Masons, Stone Motors, and Town Line Equipment. Our summer softball practice starts this week with coaches Thomas Hobbs and Adam Parker. That's summer softball for children entering grades 7 through 9. We will be partnering with SolarFest and the Brandon Area Chamber of Commerce to apply for a transformational tourism events and regional marketing T-term grant. This program requires no match and is designed to create destination tourism events. This creates funding for existing events and new events that will generate out-of-state attendance, increase visitor spending, and generate community revenue. This grant is due June 17th. The concept in Brandon would fold our Davenport celebration into the SolarFest relaunch, along with the bookend with the Brandon Bluegrass Festival. Brandon Bluegrass that weekend would start and end with SolarFest's relaunch. This is for 2025, and we would have a bunch of events in between. It would take place in mid-July with the weekends bookending the Chamber auction and the Basic Bluegrass Festival and SolarFest's event on their Steinberg Road property in 2025. This was something that just got dropped in our laps toward the end of May. It's the Vermont Department of Tourism creating this grant program using ARPA funds that are left over for the state, sort of use it or lose it for them. There's no match on this. The grant range in size from 50,000 to 150,000. It's to support creating these events that are, I guess what they kept talking about at the organizational meeting or the informational meeting was that they wanted another solar eclipse. So they wanted that kind of traffic. It generated a lot of tax revenue for the state. I don't know if we can do that here in Brandon, but it's worth a try. It's some letters, putting together a plan to bolster SolarFest. SolarFest invested in Brandon by moving here and purchasing property, and they haven't been able to relaunch a real live version of what they used to do at a traveling location for 28 years. So this will be an interesting opportunity to help them relaunch and us to create some based activities around that, including, again, the relaunch of our Davenport Festival, which has been a fun event for us to do, but we're again throwing our energy around supporting Thomas Davenport, David's son, the inventor of the electric motor, that did it here in Brandon. So this is an opportunity to work with some community partners and throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. And that's my director's report for today.
Thank you. I would like to thank the sponsors and the coaches for all the work they did with baseball and the sponsors putting dollars into the town. That's very nice. Questions from the board for the rec director?
None from me.
Right.
It will be July. Gotta look that July 6th this year, 5th, 12th, so that weekend of July 12th, even night. SolarFest weekend relaunch of their big event. Music festival would be that following weekend. So we would end with the Basic Bluegrass Festival to kick us off. And then we would have a Davenport Fest sometime in the middle of that. We'd have events all around town ending with SolarFest. Try to turn it into something tourism driven to get people from that side. And the great thing we have going for us is the fact that SolarFest as an organization, when they didn't have a home, did a lot of drawing of people from out of state. So we're kind of using that to ride their coattails to get people from out of state. Oh, yes. Like Barn Opera, for instance, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Any other questions for the rec director? Moving on, item 6, we have a bunch of appointments. Would you like to discuss that, Mr. Hopkins?
Mr. Chair, Elaine at the town office did reach out to all of the incumbents first, which has been the town's practice, and so she has the memo there. The positions have been posted more generally as vacancies on Front Porch Forum and on the town website for some time, and we've not had other folks interested in the same position.
I make a quick comment first on the second page of the listing. I believe that
Oh, yeah.
you might want to have your recent.
Planning.
And
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll ask Elaine to check it out.
so positions we have on the list of reappointing now is Development Review Board, Rob Clark, Planning Commission, Neil Sims,
Sillens.
Sillens,
Three.
Revolving Loan Fund, Frank. Go ahead, Zano. There we go. Tom Whitaker, Revolving Loan Fund, Judy Bundy. Revolving Loan Fund Alternate, Jack Schneider. And Rutland Regional Planning Commission, Jack Snyder.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and then there are the yellow highlighted items that are in the following two pages are that list, and then there's some red items that are still vacant if you wanted to announce those tonight.
So vacant, we have a Development Review Board, alternate. Deputy Fire Warden, Deputy Health Officer, Historic Preservation Committee. Two spots on the, well, one is an alternate, and one is a representative for the Otter Creek Watershed Insect Control. And lastly, the alternate for the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. So if anyone is interested in those positions, please contact the town manager. Now, do I have a motion on these?
I make a motion that we move forward on these appointments. Everybody, I know everybody by name except for Frank. No, the only person that I haven't. See here.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? They are there. Thank you all for their service. Item 7, select fuel suppliers for the 24-25 based on quotes received. Town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the bids went out, as I stated in my memo, to 8 suppliers for diesel and number 2 fuel oil, and to 6 suppliers for propane. And our current suppliers provided the lowest price in each case. And so my recommendation to the board is to accept the quotes provided by Suburban Propane for FY25 at $1.53.5 per gallon for propane, and to Champlain Valley Fuels for on-road diesel and for number 2 heating oil. The on-road diesel quote for FY25 is 15 cents over Valero Rutland rack. And on June 1st, that was $2.73.12. And for number 2 fuel oil, there is a quote which is a fixed price, and then a quote which is a floating price. And previously the select board has chosen the fixed price, but they should indicate that when they make their selection tonight.
Pleasure of the board.
I make a motion that we accept the quotes for the fixed rate prices from Champlain Valley Fuels and Suburban Propane. So that would be on-road diesel, fuel oil, and propane.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Cases.
Made some switches last.
All in favor of going with these quotes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? Gonna buy fuel. Item 8, request for a scouting salute to the Veterans Parade on November 9th.
Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to have had some good conversation last week with Roy Murdoch and Sarah Lynn Carrera, who are Brandon residents and scout leaders. And they're here tonight to talk about the Scouting Salute to Veterans Parade that they are proposing that Brandon host on Saturday, November 9th. And they're here with Billy Gillum, who is a scout executive from the council. So do you have something to do you want to introduce the concept to the board?
gonna get all the scouts from the state of Vermont in, along with veterans, and just do a parade just as a salute to the veterans, and have Brandon sponsor the location for it for this year. It would be a small parade. We would need guidance from the police department just to be able to close down the main road. And I would request that we can do some sort of a memorial at the center and the green. And that would be pretty much all that we would be asking of from the town. From there afterwards, everything else would either be the meals and everything. I'm going to talk to the Legion and try to get everything coordinated through that. So, questions does anybody have?
Where's it going? Starting at the police department?
No, so we haven't actually nailed down a full route yet.
Okay.
But we would be requesting that the police department shuts down the road and make it safe environment for it.
Okay.
So the start and the finish, all that does still need to get nailed down exactly. Like, the first idea was the same route as the Memorial Day parade, but obviously the post office is open on that day, so that can't happen. So we are going to work together and then also come back on and everything, and everything else. Before we really dive into it, we're just looking just for the permission from the town, just to be able to actually go ahead and say, yes, you can start getting into the nitty gritty and actually make a plan for this.
So in the past, when you've done this in other towns, how large a parade are there bands?
And for that, Billy Gillam, I'm from the Green Mountain Council, and also the district executive for. We had these all over the state. Units come from all over the state to this event. The American Legion stateside pays for the lunch, so that is a reason to get them there. They also get a pack to fill up. It's also a teaching moment for our youth, because now we're Scouting America, so we're not a family organization. So we have female troops and male troops that come to this event. Plus we have Cub Scouts that come to this event with their leaders. And it's a teaching moment to teach our kids respect for the military, respect for our veterans, and respect for folks who are serving us now. And it's also involving fire departments, police departments who are invited to come. We also invite local bands to come to add some more flavor to the parade. The last year we were up in St. Johnsbury. The year before that we were in Barrie, and then the year before that we were in Virginia. So we're kind of moving around. This is the first time in a long time we've had it in southern Vermont, so it's kind of nice to have it here. So we really appreciate your support on this.
So would you want it to end at the VFW, or because that's Route 7, and Route 7 creates.
Normally we usually see them at the end of the parade, wherever that is. And scouts are used to weather, so it doesn't make any difference if it's raining or pouring or whatever. And we usually have it at the end of the parade. Virginians did it at the school, and that was the end of the parade.
Yeah.
St. Johnsbury did it at the local club, which was at the end of the parade. So it was on the route. So we don't want to move the kids too far away from the leaders, because we have youth protection pieces that have to be in place for that. So that we probably do at the end somewhere in the town green, and we bring somebody in to serve sandwiches or whatever they're serving at the time.
Okay. Other questions?
Also, the council provides you a certificate of insurance. We file that 2 months before the parade. We have a certificate of insurance. So if we're in the street, every kid is covered by our insurance, and the leaders are covered by our insurance, and people who are participating in the parade are covered. So the liability is cut down to a minimum for you. We would ask the police department to work with us to make sure we have a safe environment for the 6th of March and traffic, take care of traffic. And I would suggest that we stay away from Route 7. I understand Route 7 is a major highway. Maybe we can work it out. We're on one of the little streets off the side of the park to make it easier for protection for the police department.
What's the distance you usually shoot for?
Usually we do 2 miles, a mile and a half, something like that. We don't go too far because the veterans are seasoned now, so they can't march as far as they used to. So we really respect that, and we usually take the older seasoned veterans. We put them in a vehicle as part of the parade so they can participate. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
My question, I want to pass the buck a little bit to Bill, because this is really your jam.
I love a parade. As the chair of the Independence Day Celebration Committee, It's been a while. I've worked with Sarah Lynn Career on many things before. She's fantastic around logistics. And you know the town really well. And thinking about that length of time, I mean, maybe like we would start at the top of Park Street Extension and come down Park Street and end in the center of town. It keeps us out of Route 7. We could possibly even spill out into the Brandon Inn, their back lawn, so that provides us space as well. Something to think about. I would love to work with you guys on making that happen if the select board.
So we've dealt with all sorts of weather. St. Johnsbury, it was 32 degrees in November. Virgins, it would rain and then it stopped. So weather is not an issue with us. So it's going to be rain or shine, no matter what happens.
Yeah, Route 7 is always our biggest problem child for parade. So if it doesn't do Route 7, and certainly what the group Bill just mentioned was certainly a good one.
We would go whatever the wishes of the town and whatever is going to make the police chief happy.
At the risk of comparing this to the zombie walk, that route was really actually pretty convenient, wasn't it? So we had a parade that went from where Bill said, landed on the green. Sorry, it's in bad taste to compare the two. It's just the same route. But it was a short parade route, but a really convenient one in terms of not having a huge impact in terms of people are used to and can get there, but not a huge impact in terms of stopping traffic. And
because that's what we did in Barry, and that's what we did in St. Johnsbury, that's what we did in Virgins. We were not on their main routes. Like in St. Johnsbury, we were not on Route 5, we were in the town roads. And Virgins was the same way. It went into the downtown area just for one block and came back in. So we only tied up Route 22A for just maybe a half an hour. So that was really good. The police chief worked that one out. So
guess I
I
should say,
agree with you. I think we should stay away from Route 7. I think we'll do whatever the town wants to do on that one.
I say zombie walk before, but I really should compare it to the reverse parade. That's the route that I should have called it. Sorry. Okay. But
Okay.
yeah,
Any additional questions? Pleasure of the board.
So you're asking for permission, like that we feel like this is a reasonable thing to move forward with.
We're asking for permission to use your streets for a parade.
Okay.
And we would cover the liability on insurance and those type of things. We would file that document with you probably a month prior, because I'm not sure if we were at the same insurance company, we'd get closer to November. So.
You have a question?
Yeah, I'm feeling the need to put forward a different perspective. I have deep respect for people that have made decisions to fight for things they believe in. I'm troubled by the perpetual war that the world is in, and I worry about how to break that cycle. And so I'm sometimes concerned with glorifying war to young people, because I think that war is something we need to grow out of. And that's why I hope you understand, I have deep respect for your intent, but I have trouble with the underlying principle.
Well, to answer that question, what happened in St. Johnsbury, there was a lot of older, matured veterans, females and male, that actually sat down with these kids at lunchtime and really told them what war was really about. Their experience through the Korean War, the Vietnam War, mostly. And they really got an education what war is all about. It does hurt people. And we want our kids to understand that. Okay. That's a teaching moment. That's what this is all about. But it's also to respect the people who actually served at the same time. So there is a dialogue between our kids and the veterans. Matter of fact, the veterans love it when the kids are there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will. I'll make a motion that we accept the request for a veterans parade on November 9th.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, none heard. All in favor of the parade on Veterans Parade, November 9th. Please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Ayes have it. And we will look forward to planning on the routing with, probably the town manager and our police department.
Starting tomorrow, I'll reach out to Seth and Bill. I'll reach out to you through email, and then just start a chain email there. I'll have Sarah CC to it, and we'll go from there. So thank you, Bill. I'll get this back to you. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, a letter of support for a private solar array on Robert Wood Drive with the town as an off-taker of some credits. Would you like to present, or Jack?
Probably Jack, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Put you on the spot,
Jack,
Jack.
so, Jack, just so you know, the letter from the Planning Commission is in the packet along with the, information from the developer who wishes to do the project. And I would just state at the beginning to disclose, right, that, there'll be a letter from the select board is important to making this, succeed at the Public Utilities Commission. And for disclosure purposes, the town does intend to be a principal off-taker, if not the only off-taker of the solar credits generated here.
And this is on the same site as where the proposal was earlier this year that the town was going to do and own, but now the town is not involved in the project, but we're just able to buy some electricity cheaper, if I understand it right. So,
I think you've pretty much covered it.
Well done.
come on, two more.
It's an established developer out of Montpelier. It's there are no neighbors up there, which is why it was such a good site. It's adjacent to the Green Lantern array that the town takes credits of 10%, I think. Novus Energy is the developer here. They're looking to provide a 15% discount on electricity to the town. They completed the questionnaire. The Energy Committee reviewed it, passed it along to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission felt that we should support it and push it on to the Select Board for a letter of support, which is what the Public Utility Commission welcomes from towns that are looking to build a solar array. Any questions?
I will just throw the one out there to clarify when we say that it's the 15% to benefit the town, it's the town owned buildings. Correct? Not all town properties in the town of Green.
So it's
This would be town capital T, right? So municipal accounts for electricity that the town buys from Green Mountain Power for whatever purpose. Some of it will be wastewater and then the wastewater department will pay. Some of it will be the town and the town will pay.
And the way that benefits the citizens of the town is that the amount of power that the town would be buying would be less, or the dollar figure would be less on their budget each year. Correct?
yes, it's also good they're going to replace some oil-based electricity with solar. And this will be on the site of the Brandon Industrial Corporation. And Novus Energy will have a lease with them.
Thank you. Questions for Jack from the board?
I have a question. I guess it's the same question we've asked all the time, is the decommissioning cost. I know there's a bond they put up to decommission it, but is that revisited every 5-10 years to make sure it keeps up with the cost, or is that just a one-time?
So a decommissioning plan, they will follow what the Public Utility Commission requires. And for a 150 kilowatt site, there is no bond required. So they're going to follow the state requirement, but they don't have to put up a bond. If it were 500 kilowatts or above.
Yeah, so, okay.
And that's again, something that the town won't be involved in. in this format, right? The Brandon Industrial Corporation is the landowner, and they're the ones who are working with the developer regarding all of those requirements being met. The town is just buying electric credits.
Okay, I'm just kind of a little bit worried about all the solar panels that they might just get left here.
Other questions from the board? Questions from the public?
No, responsible for the decommissioning cost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Is it the same land that you were gonna put the solar on? Yes.
Clarify that it wasn't that we were going to, it was that the town was going to, or the energy committee had wanted to. Next question. Yes, your turn.
So the Brandon Industrial Corporation is a 502c3, right?
I believe so.
I believe it was.
501.
502c3, and I think Seth, you're the registered agent. How does it work that we have a town manager who's the registered agent for a 502c3 that we're gonna have a lease with a third party? It just seems, I don't know, I've never heard of an arrangement like this.
You, having asked this a lot of times over the past solar conversations, the Brandon Industrial Corporation, when you first hear that, you think, oh my God, it's like one of those, like, what are they always, it's like, I picture like one of those movies where the bad guy is running a corporation. It's not that. It's like a few people, and the town manager, whoever it is always one of the people running the corporation.
There's regulations about that, there's nothing written about that, and it hasn't. It's more than something being on the board. It is, he's the administrator, he's the official counsel. So it's just, it's something really new. I know it's something. I'm not going to do a corporation that it doesn't call that tonight. I mean, it just seems, I don't know, somehow incestuous, and I was wondering, you know, how that works.
It was by design that
Yeah.
we wanted our town manager to be involved because this is for the interest of the town and he represents the town. And so it's very rational that we would put him in that position.
It has, it has.
Great.
Could I respond?
Yes.
So Karen, you have brought this up before. You have made accusations and intimations that there's something nefarious going on. This is the way that this corporation has always operated because the Brandon Industrial Corporation exists for the benefit of the community in the same way that the select board runs the town's affairs for the benefit of the community. The Brandon Industrial Corporation was the recipient of a gift of a parcel of land, which it has endeavored to develop for the why are you rolling your eyes at me? That's not true, Karen. It's also not true, Karen, that I'm the first town manager to be on the board. It's also not true, Karen, that I'm the first town manager to be the registered agent. You've made a series of statements that are not true, and you've made them repeatedly. I don't believe you because that's not true. I'm the registered agent because when I became town manager, the Brandon Industrial Corporation consisted of only 2 individuals, one of whom was not able to continue in his duties. I was the town manager. The town manager has, as Frank Farnsworth stated on the floor of the town meeting in front of 100 and something people, when he was town manager, he was also on the board of the Industrial Corporation. It has always been so. The reason that you're finding me as the registered agent is because I am the most boring man in Brandon and I filled out the paperwork the right way. All I am doing is clerical stuff for them. I am not paid by them. I actually filed the Brandon Industrial Corporation's registered agent change and articles of incorporation and annual report on my own money because the Industrial Corporation did not have someone who could sign a check to make it happen at the time. This is really tiresome at this point, and it's bordering on harassing of public officials and harassing of your fellow citizens and neighbors in the town of Brandon. The Industrial Corporation has its own affairs to run. They choose their own directors. They have always had in their articles of incorporation that the town manager, whoever the incumbent is a member of the board of directors. No, I'm not going to provide those to you. You can talk to the Brandon Industrial Corporation and they can provide those to you. No, I am filing their report, and they now have a president, they have a vice president, they have a secretary, and they have a treasurer, none of whom are Seth Hopkins.
Time to move the question.
Yeah, I make a motion that we provide the letter of support to support this project.
I second.
Motion and a second to have a letter supporting Novus Energy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? Thank you. Item 10. Repeal Act 250 jurisdiction ordinance requiring 1 acre review. This was tabled from the last meeting, brought up probably a month and a half ago. So we're at the point of final discussion, I hope. Anything you would like to add?
I don't have much to add that's not already been said, except that if the board does take this action to repeal the Act 250 jurisdiction ordinance that Brandon has had since 2003, the Brandon land use ordinance will still be in effect, and the Brandon subdivision regulations will still be in effect for all parcels, regardless of size, from the very smallest parcel all the way up to the largest parcel. Every parcel will continue to be subject to all of the requirements of those two pieces of regulation, which are developed at the town level and implemented at the town level and enforced by the town's zoning administrator. So it's not saying that we're going to go Wild West under 10 acres of land if you repeal this. It's just saying that if it's under 10 acres of land, the town is not taking the position that the parcel should go through the full Act 250 review process at the state level, which is the default position in other communities.
And I would go on record stating I held my tongue at the last meeting, that a number of years ago, I subdivided some of my 50 acres of land and had to follow both the town and Act 250. All Act 250 did was exactly what the town did, except cost me a lot more money and delay everything for a year. There was no change. So I feel even the state is acknowledging that Act 250 is old and not needed everywhere anymore and is reworking theirs. I would be in favor of repealing that part of it.
I make a motion that we repeal the Act 250 jurisdiction ordinance requiring 1 acre review.
You gonna have any more discussion on this?
Yep. Even with a motion, we can discuss anyway. So
Why are we in a hurry to do this? State hasn't finished their Act 250. I don't see the need to push this through unless there's something going on we don't know about. We've got everything in town we need here. Let's wait for the state to finish what they have to do. I don't see any rush.
My feeling is that the housing is an issue that's a permanent problem throughout our country, and that we need to remove impediments where we can to allow housing to happen more efficiently. And as has been stated, I would slightly word it differently than Doug put, because I think Act 250 does play a critical role at the scale that it's designed for. And what this is recognizing ways that we can get affordable housing to happen more easily by removing some red tape. And so I think we should pass this.
What do you consider affordable housing?
The group that I've been working with is trying to make a $150,000 house, a single family, 2-bedroom. That's what I consider affordable housing. And the current laws that they're changing are allowing you to have more density on property that's within walking distance of the town, which is exactly where you want to have development. And so by removing this requirement, you're going to make it more likely that people can build where we want them to build and help with housing.
Would think we could wait for the state to finish their Act 250 review in writing that act or rewriting it before we do anything. I think it's smart thing to do, in my book.
I guess I'm not sure I understand what we gain by that, because even whatever the state does, I think this is a smart move, apart from what the state does.
Go ahead, Seth, I saw you.
I just want to clarify that this is not related to the state's current reform of Act 250. This is something that's come up from previous zoning administrators. It's come up from the present zoning administrator. It's come up from previous planning commissions and the present planning commission. It's come up with assistance of our regional planners at Rutland Regional Planning Commission. The situation that Brandon has created with 1 acre review on Act 250 is not the normal situation that prevails in Rutland County. It's also been something that our economic development officer has identified as an actual impediment to potential development projects that have been proposed.
Hang on one second. We have a motion. Do we have a second on that one?
I'll second.
Yes, we have a motion. Now we're gonna get, go ahead, Trish.
Thank you.
I just have a question. Is that specifically talking about being able to build housing or anything on that?
So all that the legislature allowed with the 10 acre versus 1 acre review was 10 acre versus 1 acre, no further conditions. So this would apply to any development on lots less than 10 acres.
But it would still be constrained by our own development review board. And so we would still have the ability to put controls.
We could put controls and we could change them easier if we saw the need to have requirements. Any other discussion points from the board?
Oh,
Yeah, I know. I want to go to the board first. Oh, board
Okay.
first.
I would say, I have a business on Pearl Street in a residential neighborhood that it was a grandfathered lot. And if it wasn't grandfathered, I'd never have a business there because I wouldn't have gone through Act 250. It would cost too much. So I've been there 25 years. Had some problems with the neighbors, but we worked everything out. So I think this is a good thing for small businesses.
Okay, if somebody else had a hand up here, yes.
But my concern is for those projects that are on less than 10 acres of land that are going to be putting in commercial businesses that could be detrimental to the environment. And that's not, so is there any, I mean, basically, I feel like we're providing a loophole that says, you know, we're under 10 acres, we can go ahead and with our projects, so the commercial businesses, for manufacturing, and with no review or due diligence that actually fits into the line. That is my concern. So if there's any way that we could stipulate that as an exception, I think that would be a good thing.
So I think there's a pretty nearby analogous example of this, right? So next, not immediately next door, but one further next door, right, is a parcel that currently has a car wash and a fuel station and a fast service donut shop, right? So that was under 1 acre, which means that even with this requirement, it did not have to go through Act 250 at all. But each of those different facilities had to go through state permitting for water and wastewater and all of the, you know, the soil testing for the fuel station and the underground fuel storage and all of this kind of stuff. All of those permits that a business would have to get to use hazardous materials or to, you know, do anything that was going to hook up to the utilities, those are all still in place outside of Act 250. And so this is, to my thinking, sort of like a little micro example of what we would be talking about if the 10 acre review was was the case, we would still have, if that was on a 2-acre parcel, they still would have gotten all their exact same permits from the state for all of their operations outside of Act 250.
Yeah. Existing convenience store with it, or it went through a lot of changes that was already approved as a business in the downtown area.
But that didn't matter to the state of Vermont. They don't grandfather in fuel stations. It was a different operation.
Well, no, we just have to get a permit.
So they would have still had to go through Brandon's development review process. They did, in fact, go through Brandon's development review process, and they still had to get permits from the state departments that had jurisdiction for various operations for the car wash. They had to go with A&R with some permits for the car wash. Those things all still happen regardless of Act 250. Yes, and they will continue to, is what I'm saying.
Vicky disorder.
The point is that if this proposal reduces X cost at 50 filing and delay and permitting for these parcels now, or parcels under 10 acres, not under 1.
Yeah.
For all the other permitting,
Vicky had her hand up.
So my understanding is that the options that are given in Act 250 statute is that you can be a 1-acre Act 250 review town, or you can be a 10-acre Act 250 review town. I don't believe we have the authority or capacity to put any additional conditions on being a 10-acre town.
But so this is a question, is that where our development review board comes into play to make sure that we don't plunk something someplace where we, plunk a Walmart in the middle of Mount Pleasant or something. I mean, I'm coming up with a ridiculous thing, but is that where the sort of
Yes. Yeah.
where we have the
we have a lot of oversight with our current Brandon land use ordinance. We also have a map that designates what kind of development can happen where within our downtown, and anything that doesn't conform to that goes to development review board. Anything that our zoning administrator can't issue a permit for goes to the development review board. If somebody's not happy with what the development review board does, it's the same thing. They get an appeal, then go to environmental court, independent of Act 250.
There's a lot of steps already, and Act 250 truly can slow down and increase cost. And if the increase in cost goes, whoever's selling whatever the piece of that property is going to raise the cost of the property accordingly, which starts pricing people out indirectly. I don't know. So, yes.
So how did you go from a 10-acre to a 1-acre? How did you come up with 1? Why didn't you go with like a
That's
5-acre?
that's all the statute allows, right? So the statute says if you don't do anything, you're a 10-acre town. Anything above 10 acres go through Act 250 review. If you want to, you can become a 1-acre town. And the Brandon Select Board did that 20 years ago.
And what I can say from like the steps I had to go through, I was in it at the time I did mine. I was in an area of town that's 2-acre lots supposedly, and my real estate agent wanted me to do more lots, 2 acres. And my smallest lot's 3.125. Largest lot's 4 acres. I could have fit 2 more in, but I wanted to have space and whatever. But again, still the designing and the engineering and the septics and the state approval and everything was redundant to what Brandon already was doing. So that's why I'm in favor of making it. I mean, we're trying to encourage some development. We're trying to encourage possibly new businesses to encourage a growth in our grand list that helps our tax rate. And if we are not willing to encourage development, then that's going to slow it down. My own take. Yes.
With our own PRC, the board isn't it just the abutting or properties that you have development, number one. And number two, at the $250 fine, each time you can start our neighbor's building permit. So that means like, you know, for somebody with more money, they could just keep applying and so
Can I address that? Select person, Ethier brought that up at the last meeting when we talked about this. And we did a little bit of research. I did say we, the corporate I did a little bit of research to determine that the zoning fees run the gamut. And we have the ability to change those fees, those fees to appeal if you are a butter. And also you have the ability to become an interested party as well. If you attend the hearing for the Development Review Board, you don't have to necessarily be a neighbor to be an interested party to have the ability to appeal the decision once it gets to the DRB.
And I talked to Jeff too. He said it's $100 charge to appeal a zoning permit. If somebody's issued a zoning permit, it's $100 charge.
One more, and then we're going to move.
question. Currently, is to develop the DRB, have the authority to redesignate areas as commercial residential.
The planning commission.
Oh, but it's just, it's the town, whatever you want to do.
The Planning Commission would do it through a public process of amending the Brandon Land Use Ordinance, which is actually underway right now.
And move the question. So we have a motion on the floor to repeal the ordinance. And yes.
Have a good plan that is benefit financially from this
Go ahead.
No. So the way that the select board operates is if the select board is acting in their official capacity and their decisions, such as setting a tax rate, is likely to impact them in the same manner as it would impact anyone else, they don't have to recuse. If they feel that there is actual gain or an actual conflict of interest, they can choose to disclose that and still act, still vote, or they can choose to recuse, and none of those things can be required of them. I don't know who you have in mind, Vicky. I'm sorry. So I'm trying to, in my head, figure out what exactly the situation is, but in general, the whole select board can vote on everything unless they have an actual direct financial conflict of interest.
I guess that would be my follow-up question. Is there something that's specific that you're concerned about? Like your question made me wonder if there was something that I should know about in terms of conflicts of interest that you have a specific concern about.
Nothing that I guess I will rely on the personal ethics of the board.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to rescind. Need to go through Act 250. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-1. Item 11. Consider changes to the holiday list in the personnel policy of the town.
Mr. Chair, you have a one-page memo from me. The 4 points I would highlight is that we would propose, this is from me, town manager would propose to remove the day before Christmas floating holiday from the list of paid time off, replace it with Juneteenth, which is June 19th, in keeping with state statutes. The state has recently designated Juneteenth as a state holiday. Further, I recommend you rename Columbus Day in the policy as Indigenous Peoples Day, in keeping with state statute. And lastly, I would suggest for clarifying that the day after Thanksgiving is the Friday after the fourth Thursday and not the fourth Friday necessarily, including in this year. It will not be the fourth Friday, it will be the fifth Friday. And for the benefit of the public who might be interested to learn, I would just like, with your permission, to read that last paragraph about Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a federal holiday in the United States. It is celebrated annually on June 19th to commemorate the ending of slavery. On June 19th, 1865, the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas at the end of the American Civil War. That part's from Wikipedia. And then from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Juneteenth marks our nation's second Independence Day. Although it has long been celebrated in the African American community, this monumental event remains largely unknown to most Americans. The historical legacy of Juneteenth shows the value of never giving up hope in uncertain times. And I laid out some reasoning why the Christmas Eve floating holiday is a little bit problematic in the memo.
Motion from the board?
I make a motion, we adopt these changes.
A second.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Unheard.
Thanks for your attention to detail on that fifth Friday instead of fourth Friday. I don't think I would have caught that in a million years.
All in favor of changing the policy, updating the holiday policy to include Juneteenth and take out the day before Christmas floating holiday, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no one. Now we're here for what everyone comes for. Public comment and participation for items not on the agenda. First, the board. Do you have anything, any board member have anything they would like to bring up that's not on the agenda? No. Public.
Easy.
Huh?
That was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last call.
What's your luck?
I get to go home early tonight.
The vote tomorrow.
Oh, good call. Oh, I have one thing. That play Puffs was amazing.
What?
Walking Stick Theater did such a good job at Otter Valley. It was the best play I've ever seen. It was great.
Then the board will recess for 5 minutes before going into executive session. Thank you all for coming here. Pause the machine.
I make a motion that I move to find that premature general public knowledge of the pending contract negotiation with New England Police Benevolent Association Local 422 will clearly place the town of Brandon at a substantial disadvantage by disclosing its negotiation strategy. I move to enter into executive session to discuss the town's pending labor relation agreement with New England Police Benevolent Association Local 422 per Vermont, per one.
This is the second motion, right? Don't we
Yeah,
have
we
to do
gotta-
the
we
third
gotta
motion?
Do I have to have two? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So that's my first one.
First one. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I do.
Now you do
Okay, I'm
second.
sorry. I move to enter into executive session to discuss the town's pending labor relation agreement with New England Police Benevolent Association Local 422 per 1 BSA 313 A1B subset, I don't know, for labor relations agreements with employees to include the town manager
And
Sorry for my-
town manager.
And assistant.
and assistant town manager. Yes.
All in favor? Second first?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're entering executive session. Action taken. We are coming out of executive session. No action will be taken. And Mr. Coolidge will make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.